Thank you, Mr. Keating. I now recognize for 5 minutes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate your time here today. Why don't we just get real about this conversation for once? Iran is a country that is run by a criminal terrorist regime. That's what Iran is. We're talking about having negotiations with them and so on and so forth. I guess we've got to. Yeah, but North Korea is a criminal, essentially terrorist regime. When you look at what it does to its own citizens, it doesn't because it can't afford to export its terrorism, but Iran does and has continued to do so. And even with the fact notwithstanding that 80% of Hezbollah's drones and missiles have been taken out, Assad's regime is gone, Tehran's missile factories have been devastated, the Houthis are finally under some real fire. Iran still exists. And we're talking like there's some, well, let me ask you, you guys are the experts, Mr. Rule, is Iran going to give up its nuclear program? Have they ever shown any interest whatsoever? But before you answer that question, is there any question in anybody's mind on the panel that their nuclear program is specifically for weapons utilization? It's a weapons program. It's not for power or medical research. It's for aggressive military action. Is there any question about that? Is there any dissension from that?
Frankly, sir, the question is I think the best way of putting is Iran has a civilian nuclear program and has kept open the option for a military.
Why do they need to enrich so much for a civilian program?
Not only do they not need to enrich, it's a great question. They are now focusing the enrichment aspect of their entire nuclear program on non-civilian enrichment. So they need to enrich between 3 and 5%.
It's a weapons program.
For civilian, they're enriching at 60%, which is only military grade. In essence, they're shaping their entire civilian nuclear program to make it look as if they're aiming for a military program. It has no civilian use, this array, this architecture they're creating. That doesn't mean they've decided to make a bomb. And we've heard the DNI Gabbard say they're not doing this, but facts are facts in that regard.
Maybe I should have added they are a lying criminal terrorist regime. Right? They lie about things. They use diplomacy to their advantage because the rest of the, to the point of the JCPOA, the rest of the world, our allies, followed President Obama, who didn't want to see a nuclear Iran during his term, but didn't mind seeing one 15 years later when he was no longer the president. It didn't stop their nuclear production, their military nuclear capability. It just delayed it. That's all it did. Nobody here wants to acknowledge it. But to my other point, have they ever shown any interest whatsoever in getting rid of this nuclear program, for whatever way you want to describe it?
No, and in fact, it is extremely, their red lines have been not giving up industrial enrichment, not closing any facilities, and not giving up on R&D, and it's very unlikely they will give up on any of those red lines without significant pressure and the threat of military action, unfortunately.
Ms. Jungmann, you disagree with that?
I do not disagree.
Ms. Stroll.
Agree.
I do not disagree.
Okay, so what are we talking about here? We're talking about like we can have some conversation that's going to get them to give it up, even while we all know in the room they ain't giving it up, right? Ms. Jungmann, they got, 300 ghost ships running around selling their oil, which is sanctioned, but they sell it to the Chinese and whoever they want. And where does that money go to the people of Iran? Look, there are probably wonderful, I'm sure there are wonderful people in Iran that don't want to live under this yoke of terrorism. But their money's not going to them, is it? It's going to who?
No, the money from Iran's oil, it goes right back to its terrorist proxies.
Yeah, it's terrorist proxies, the Quds Force, probably to their nuclear weapons program. Ladies and gentlemen, all we're doing is delaying the inevitable, right? Iran, we're acting like we can talk our way out of having this cancer get worse by just having the cancer kind of settle down for a little bit. There's a cancer in the Middle East. There's a cancer on the globe. The name in this case is Iran and the leadership in Iran. That's the cancer. We better get real about what we're talking about because they're not going to give it up willingly no matter what the negotiation is. And I just wish that we'd quit fooling around and acting like the IAEA is going to tell us something. I mean, they wouldn't even allow an American inspector on the team. They wouldn't allow inspectors to visit military sites. Who are we kidding here? I'm sorry, I didn't have any questions before I yield.